start recording. So this this Lunch and Learn is being recorded. You will also see on your GoToMeeting, if this is if you're not too familiar with GoToMeeting, that there is a little white arrow with an orange background, and that means that you can kind of like minimize the screen so you can see the full screen. You can of course also move it to a second monitor if you want that. So I'm assuming that everybody can hear me and everybody can see me. I'm just checking the chat here, and there's nobody who have put anything in that they cannot hear me, so I'm assuming that we're good with that. And well, this Lunch and Learn here, and we still got a couple of people going, and that's fine. This Lunch and Learn, I'm excited about this one. SolidWorks Design Libraries. And the reason I'm excited about it is that if you have never played with this or really looked into this, I think you're in for some treat. This has some really cool options. I used to use this myself a lot back in the day when I can see there's somebody who cannot see me in the question mark. They cannot see me. Can you, somebody just put in that you can actually see my screen? Because it will really suck if I don't show my screen. Let's see here. See my screen. All right, so I get somebody who can see my screen. So I'm sorry that you can't see my screen. This is getting recorded, so again, so you know, you can always email me. You see my email there, Lars@CADimensions.com, if you have any issues, and I can definitely try to get the recording to you. But this design library is a really neat thing. So if you haven't looked at it, I will definitely, you know, I think that after today, I think that most of you are definitely going to go in and look at it, and I will almost guarantee that you're all going to see some kind of a benefit in it. If not, you're more than welcome to email me and tell me I'm wrong, but I'll go out on the limb here. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the SolidWorks Design Library. It was touched on during the Essentials class. If you took that class, you would have seen that a little part of it in there, but really where it kind of shines is in working with it and getting making your life easier, right? It's a lazy man's tool, and I like that. So what we're going to cover today is, well, let's go in here and talk about it. SolidWorks Design Library. We're going to do an overview. First thing is, how does it work and why? So I just want to give you like a 3-minute taste of what can this be used for. So again, if you haven't looked at it, I think that you'll be like, wow, this is definitely something we're going to check out. We're also going to create some library features and kind of like show how easy they are to work with. Then we're going to get into a little bit more advanced, because what the library features actually let you do is it lets you kind of like think out and reuse things over and over and over again. And then in the end, actually over in the SolidWorks Design Library, there is actually some added things in there. So again, if you have never seen the Design Library, never been over and looking at it, I think that you're going to see here that that things looks pretty cool. So let's jump into it. Let's take a look at what we actually have in there. So how does it work and why? Well, let's jump into SolidWorks. And we're inside SolidWorks, and let me just show you here on my, let me go to my desktop here. On my desktop, I have a couple of files that I'm going to be using today, but we're actually going to be working on my desktop a little bit here today, so I can show you some of these things. So inside SolidWorks, your design library is sitting over here. There's like this task pane over here that has some different buttons. If you ever created drawings, you've probably been inside the view palette. And right here is these bookcases, and that is the design library. Now, when you work with it, you can hit this thumb tag up here, and then it will actually stay. If you don't have that, when you click outside, it kind of like goes away. So I'm just going to thumb tag it. We're going to work with this today. And it already comes with things in it. That is one of the neat things about this, is that SolidWorks have actually already predefined a bunch of things inside the design library that we can take a look at. So let's just do a quick take a look at this. So I'm going to open up, and I created a part here And this part here, as you can see, it's just the revolved parts. I put in some hole wizard holes, I put in a cut, and some chambers. Nothing too fancy part. This would be an everyday part that you're working with. Now, where the design library comes in is that it actually can help you with a lot of features. So like I said before, SolidWorks have already thrown a bunch of tools in there. So after this lunch and learn, I'll definitely tell you to go in and look at what some of these things is because they're pretty neat. Just to give you a little taste, if I go into features, and you will see that's kind of like a folder structure, and since we are in the United States, we might as well go into inches, and you will see there's a lot of different things in here broken down in different sections. If I go into keyways, the way this works is if I double click on this rectangular key set and I just drag it over on a face and let's go, so just left drag over on this face and let's go, you will see over to the left side I actually get populated with this little property manager in here, and you will see, you know, like I say, in SolidWorks always start from the top, work your way down, right? You will see the face that I selected, but you will also see configurations. Now that's SolidWorks features, right? The configurations up here. Now if I go down here and I select a configuration, so this is all predefined, I actually get this little preview that comes up with, over here it says select an edge, and we can see that there's a blue edge here. What it wants me to do is select an edge on my model. I click on that, and bang, see that? It just threw in a keyway feature. Now if I go up and hit the green check mark, you will see that inside my SolidWorks tree I got a rectangular key set, and right there is a key set for holding the shaft. Ta-da! Right? That was kind of easy. Doesn't have to go in and create anything or sketching anything. I'm just literally just dragging a already created feature right over here. Now let's try something else. What about a O-ring, for example? So I got a floating pneumatic one here. I drag that over, I let go. As soon as I do that, again, this time I get property with different configurations again. So you have to you know, find a configuration that kind of like fits. You can see that there's a lot of different ones in here. You just go through here and choose to select one, like this one here. And as soon as I do that, I get a preview window again, showing with a blue edge that, you know, it's looking for an edge. So I can select this edge right here, and it places it right here, right? Now, look, though, underneath here, it actually comes up with a locating dimension. From this dialog box, it will actually let me go right in here and move it, right? So I can just go in here and type a value, and just like that, it's actually moving the O-ring to where I want it. Hit the green check mark, and now I got that O-ring right there. So this is pretty neat. You can even see the radius is in there, right? Same thing if you go to the back here. There's actually face O-rings too. So I can go in and say I want to take a static gas. I hold down my left mouse button, and I just drag it over and let go. As soon as I do that, again, I get prompted here. Select your size of the configurations, because this one is created like that. So I can go in here and select the configuration that I want. And as soon as I do that, it comes up with a preview picture. It needs a circular edge, and it shows up here. Now this one don't have a locating dimension, but what it does have is it has size dimensions. I can actually go in and override the ones that this feature was created with. So if I go in and look here, we can see we have a small radius of 10 thousandths. If I go in here and I change this to 25, see how the radius changes? So even within here, I got that kind of control. So very quickly, you know, with a couple of drag and drops, I have actually added some general features to this part without having to modeling anything. I bet you that if you have never seen the design library before, SolidWorks Design Library, this is pretty exciting, right? That we didn't have to model anything up. We can actually save things in here, and we can use it in here, and we can modify it, right? Now on top of that, so we see that we have them over here in the tree, and they are bookcases. If I right-click on them, I can actually dissolve a library feature. Now when I do that, what will end up happening is it will show the sketch that was used to create it. It will show a plane and an actual feature, because these library features is SolidWorks features, right? It's a standard SolidWorks feature right here that has a sketch and everything that you can go in and right-click and you can edit it and it'll actually bring, you know, the standard dialog boxes. It's just all hidden within this bookcase. So I can go ahead and hit on the other one down here, right-click, the Solid Library feature, and again, this one used a 3D sketch, an axis, a plane, and then it used a revolve cut to make that O-ring. Will probably make sense, right? Now, I generally don't recommend that you just solve the library features. Two reasons for that. One is that, well, first of all, if you save this file out and I'm now the one who's going to go and open it, or immediately I can see that you're using a library feature, a standard feature that maybe I also can then have access to. But on top of that, if you right-click on the bookcase and you go and say Edit Feature, it brings me right into that dialog box again. So from right in here, I maybe go up and change another configuration, or, I mean, again, I have the access right in here to go and actually change things. So I could go in and say, I want to make this 1.5 inches, and maybe I make the ID, you know, a lot smaller, and suddenly I'm completely modifying the one we brought in. So it gives you that kind of flexibility to do that right there. So that is really the power of library features inside the design library, that you can do that. So again, very quickly, right? In a few minutes, we dragged and we edited and we added 3 features to this one. So what is this? Well, it's fast and easy, right? No doubt about it. You can very, very quickly take standardized parts, such as O-rings and stuff like that, and you can very quickly dragging it in to that like that. So I see here somebody has a question in regards to they don't see when they look at their side in SolidWorks, they don't see it. I'm sure that in the end where it's actually hiding inside of that. So don't worry about it. We'll get back to that. Now, so how does this work? What is, you know, so SolidWorks have already thrown some things into in there. We saw that with the key rings and the O-rings and all those things. How do we manage this ourselves? Well, it's easy. And like I said, you know, when it comes to using CAD, and I'm a big favor of being lazy, and this is really a neat tool that you can work with. So let me show you this. If we go back in here. So I showed you before how SolidWorks have this design library. And by the way, let me just show you. If you don't see the design library in here, it might be because your IT department or somebody else have messed around with your locations. So this is actually, if you go up to Options in SolidWorks and try to go out to File Location in the System Options, and down here you will actually see that you will have a tab for Design Library. This is where SolidWorks by standard throws it out here. So this might be because this is blank or it's pointing somewhere where it shouldn't be pointing. So this might where you want to change it. But so it's all. I mean, I think it's awesome that SolidWorks have decided to give us all these existing features. But I might want to generalize and kind of like make my own design library for my own company. How does that work? Well, there's some different buttons up here. And one of them up here is called Add File Location. So check this out. If I go to my desktop and I right-click and say New and create a folder, this is a Windows command, nothing to do with SolidWorks, right? And I'm going to call this one Lars Design, like this here. So I just have a folder, I place it on my desktop. You might want to place it on your server or somewhere else. Well, if I go back into SolidWorks and I click up here, Add File Location, you will see that SolidWorks comes out and says choose a folder. I go to my desktop and I select that Last Design and hit OK. See how that one suddenly appears over here? So you can have multiple design libraries in here. You don't have to just use the one SolidWorks have. You can keep that one as kind of like a safe haven, you know, that everybody can kind of like drag things out of, and you can kind of like create your own here. Now when you create your own here, we can see I don't have any folders. I can go up and click this one. I can now create a folder. Create a folder, and I can now name it something. So I'm going to call this one Parts. Okay. Now I create this folder part here. How do I add things to it? Well, it's not just features like I showed before we can add in here. We can actually also add parts. I can actually take this part here and go over to the SolidWorks over here, and I can drag it right over that part folder and let go. And as soon as I do that, you will see over to the left again, start from the top. It selected my part. I called it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Very, technical part number system Glasses uses. And I can change the file name. You will see where it gets located, and it saves it as a part. So I'm going to hit OK, and now you will actually see that I get a preview of it over here. Now, what does this mean? Well, just hang on a second. If I go out and I look on my desktop again, we created this folder on my desktop, we linked to it. Well, if I double click on it, you will see that there's that parts folder I created. On top of that, if I click on it, you will see that there's the part. So what actually happens with SolidWorks is that when you add something to the design library over here, it's almost like doing a save as. See, I added these features over here, but I didn't save it. You haven't seen me click on the save icon. Matter of fact, if I exit out of this and I say don't save, I go out and open up that file again on my desktop that I started out with, you will see that there's nothing in it. However, if I go over to the part I added over here and I right click on it and say open, I will get the one I saved over there. Right? So so that is pretty neat that that I got that in there, that I can see that. Okay, so that is like saving a part. Now, why is this cool? Well, this is pretty neat. If this is a part I'm using quite a bit, what if I'm working in an assembly? Right? So if I open up an assembly here, you know that normally when you're working assembly, if you got to bring parts into an assembly, what do? You go over here and you browse for it, right? Or if you already have an assembly in here, you will go up and say insert component and browse for it. Well, now I can actually just go over here to my design library and drag it in there. And it works just like a standard SolidWorks part file. This is a standard SolidWorks part file. So if there's certain components that you're using a lot inside SolidWorks, you can literally throw them in the design library and just drag them out onto your assemblies. So now you don't have to browse for them in specific ways and stuff like that. So, it's very kind of like easy to set up and use like that. Now another thing, let me open up this this part here again. Now another thing that we can do when we're working with the design library is not only going to have the parts over here, we can open them up. Cool. You will actually also see that if we go into back to the SolidWorks one, there's one called annotations. You can actually also save annotations inside of the design library. So let's just go out and make a drawing from this part here. I'm just going to select some drawing template, and I'm just going to drag a couple of views in, right, like this here. Now, if we go back to the design library, we go into the SolidWorks one, you will see, like I showed before, there's annotations. So that means if you have certain symbols you're using quite a bit, you're going to just drag them into your drawings. I used to use this quite a bit. I used to have some custom balloons that I made up that I like to use, and this was how I used them. I created a folder for my annotations, and I can just click them in. Same thing with blocks. So, I mean, there's an elevation marker here. I can literally bring that block in, and I can place it on a drawing, right? So I have that one in there as a block that I can bring in. So how do you do that? If you have any custom symbols and stuff like that you want to bring in, let's create a quick block so I can show how we're going to do this. So I'm just going to exit out of this. Let's get out of this here. And again, go into mine that I created here. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it annotations, like that. Again, as soon as I create a folder in here, it is linked directly into the last design, and you will see that the folder shows up in here. It's inside a window. So that's how that works, just so you understand that that's kind of like how it's going back and forth. Now, if I want to create like a block, for example, the easiest way to do it is to maybe go in and just create, bring up something, maybe a drawing template or something like that. And one of the neat things about SolidWorks drawings is that you can sketch, right? So maybe I go in here and I'm just going to sketch something, and I'm going to add a circle in here like this, and maybe I also want to add some text, something like this here. I don't want the leader on it, right? So now I kind of like have created something, a symbol of something that I like to reuse in my annotation block here. So how do we do that? Well, the easiest way is to go in Tools and find Block. So Tools, Block. And in here it will tell you can make a block. So make a block, and you just highlight everything you want to make a block out of. Okay, hit the green check mark. Now you created a block. Now we just need to save it. Well, go to Tools, go to Blocks, and now you can actually save that block. Save it. Where am I going to save it to? Well, I'm going to save it to that location for my design library. So I'm going to go to Desktop, Last is Design, there's my annotations, right? And I might just rename this to my block, hit Save, and then when I go up and hit the refresh symbol up here, that shows up, right? So now I have saved that as a block, as a symbol, so the next time I decide to go in and make a drawing from this part here, I can literally just grab that annotation out of my annotation block, drag it out on the drawing, and there is my annotation, right? So that's really neat that you can go in and create these blocks here. On top of that, you can actually do more than that. So you saw me before creating a part inside of the design library. We can actually also create save assemblies in here. So let's create a new folder, assemblies, and I'm going to hit the R key. I already have an assembly in here. It's not going to work on my go-to meeting. That's great. All right, so never mind. We're just going to have to open it up. Not like that. There we go. So I have this assembly created here that is a car remote thing that I have here, and that actually comes in. There we go. I have this car remote. It's an assembly with 3 different parts in here, and again, inside of my assembly folder over here, if I just click on the assembly icon, I can drag it right onto my assembly. The dialog box comes up. The exact same thing with the part. The only difference is that it actually here adds an assembly icon. Instead, I say it as assembly instead of a part. Save it over there, and now I got an assembly saved in here. Exact same way. Now let me close it down here. And how does this work now? Well, now I can use that as a sub-assembly inside a normal assembly, right? So I open up my assembly again, and I can now drag this one in, and now it's a sub-assembly inside of an assembly. So that's pretty cool. What I'd like to point out about the assembly is what are we actually looking at here? Well, if we go in to the folder system again on my desktop, and we find the assembly folder, you will see that it just brings in the assembly. It's not bringing in the parts of the assembly, just the main assembly. So that could be important to be aware of that. It's not a pack and go, right? I can show that too by opening it up here from the design library. Go to File and go to Find References. You will see that it just brings in, that's the assembly brought in. So the files are still somewhere else on a completely other drive, right? Now from in this Find References you can open up pack and go, but that's a whole discussion. So when you bring it in here as an assembly, you know, you can kind of like go in and create it like that. So that's really how it works in here to set it up and kind of like working with it in here, creating the different folders. So we have saved an annotation in here, we've saved an assembly, and we have also saved the part. Now maybe it's time now to look at how do we create a feature, right? So how we create a feature in here is I'm just going to check in and see if there's nobody have posted any other questions here. Let's see, that looks okay. So so that was annotations, assemblies, and parts. Now features. How do we do that inside of here? Because this is where I think some of the magics really come in, because it's very easy to actually save features into the design library from something you're working on. Well, before I do that, let me show you a SolidWorks tip that have nothing to do with the design library, but just so you know you can do that. So if I'm working on this remote and I decide to open up the part here, so now I've actually opened up this part of this rubber pad with the buttons on here. So again, this has nothing to do with SolidWorks. If I want to take one of these features and bring it to another part, I can actually do that. So let me go in here and open up a brand new template with nothing in it, part template, inch, and I'm just going to sketch something here on the top plane. Let me just create a circle. It's not going to be very advanced. Let's put a dimension on it, and let's extrude this up. Like it could be a little punch or something, right? Nothing too advanced. Now, and if I hit these buttons up here and kind of like split the screen up. Now, if you didn't know this, again, this is not the design library. This is a SolidWorks feature that if you are working, you know, I've been working on this part, and you can see there's a SolidWorks features tree over here. Now I'm working on this part in SolidWorks. I can actually, if I want to take this bottom feature here, Boss Extrude 6, what is this car logo? Did you know that you can just drag it from one to another part? Now when I do that, this is not a warning. This is just SolidWorks says that there were some external relationships on this part that it don't know how to associate with this one, and I can either insert them in dangling or I can just delete them. But you see what just happened? I literally just dragged one feature over to a completely other part model that I haven't even saved or anything and brought it over there. So that has nothing to do with the design library, but this could be really, really handy. Right? You're working with a certain part and you say, oh, I want this feature over on another part. You can actually do it just like that. Very cool. However, where the design library kind of like comes in is that, well, chances are that if you are working on this part here, you might remember that there was another feature you wanted to reuse, but now you got to, of course, try to find that file. What the design library will let you do is taking this feature, Boss Extrude 6 over here, and save it in the design library forever. And now we can just drag it from there, right? Pretty cool. So let me just get rid of this Boss Extrude here. So let me just delete that. And I'm going to delete the sketch that is associated with it too. So this is just a blank here. Now, let's just minimize that. How do we work with saving things, a feature from a part into the design library? Well, let's first of all create a folder for it. That's always a good thing. So I'm going to call this one features. So now we have a features folder over here. Well, can you imagine how you do it? You take the feature and you drag it over and let go. And as soon as you do that, it will come up here and will say that was the feature we dragged over. It's going to save it inside of here. I could rename it. It now knows that it's not a part or assembly. This is actually a library feature. That's pretty cool. I'm going to hit the green check mark. It's going to say to me that there's a couple of relationships that it's not quite sure what to do with. I'm just going to send it over here. Now what you see over here is that it's actually using a bitmap of the part that you're using, okay? And it's actually also saving, over here it actually says that it's a library feature now. This, you know, you can close this down. You don't have to use that after, you don't have to save anything. But what we have now is anytime I can go over here and I can just drag this over on a face. Now as soon as I let go, it knows that that car profile was on the rubber pad, was in relationship to the round piece. So now I have to select that edge, and now I have actually gotten gotten that car placed right there. Now, it is important to know that these library features are not linked to the actual part that I drew it out of. So now I don't know if I closed the part file down. So let's just go. We know that we brought that out of the assembly, right? So let's open up the assembly again, and let's open up the file from here. So this part file here is not associated with this one. And I can prove that to the matter that if I go into this part file here and go in and say edit library feature, and I go down to size here, you will see that we have all different, different kinds of size, right? And I can actually go in and override those just like we did on the part before. So if I go in here and, for example, decide to take a radius, I'm not sure what radius this is. It's kind of hard to see in the go-to media. Let's try to change it to something and see what happens. I actually changed the whole car. It didn't change this over here, right? If I go in and change this one, you can see how we're changing the model, but it's not changing anything over on our left side. So I'm completely changing this library feature, not over on our part. So they are de-associated, what is pretty neat. So this is really a really easy way to go ahead and work with this. That you can literally just take a feature, drag it over into your feature over here, and then bam, it's there, right? So very easy to kind of like go in and set up and work with. Literally just drag it over, and then it becomes a library feature. So it's easy to work with, and I think it's cool. Again, I say it all the time. If you haven't touched the library feature before, design library, then you have just been exposed to a way that you can model very quickly the standard features that you have. Now, when you get into this kind of stuff and you see this, you maybe now want to also, you maybe have some other features where you want to put a little bit more thought behind it and maybe control where the features get located, maybe not just on circles, but actually also with edges. And we can control that in here. So very quickly, let me just show you. I say that this is kind of like enhanced and let's change things, but it's really easy. So if I am in the position where I know I have a certain features that I would like to use inside of SolidWorks on a general basis, I might decide to create some of them kind of like setting it up. And how we do that is, again, it's easy. If I go in here and I'm just going to open up an empty document. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a placeholder for my feature. So I'm just going to create a box. And let's make this one 8 by 5. And let's extrude that one up some. It doesn't really matter. It is just a placeholder for my part here, maybe 2 inches for my feature. So this is a placeholder. Now I'm going to go ahead and create the feature that I want to reuse. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open up a new sketch on the top face, and I'm going to select a rectangle here. Now this rectangle, again, I'm going to control it with some dimensions, nothing too crazy. But what I do want to control with this one too is where it's located from some outer edges. So that's why I'm going to use this placeholder block. So I'm just going to select a placeholder and say, well, this one here is going to be 1 inch in this way, and then maybe it's going to be 1.5 from here. Now, when you do this, it doesn't really have to be exact on here either, where it's located. Now, when you do this, you might find it helpful if you know that these dimensions, the location of your library feature is going to change. You might find it helpful to actually name them. So to name things in SolidWorks, dimensions in SolidWorks, when you're inside of this dialog box that we all are very familiar with, you just highlight up here, and now I can call it something. Dimension in X, maybe. I call it that. And then, oh no, that was actually not X, that's supposed to be in Y. Oops, in Y, because I'm going to call the other one in X. Dimension in X. Now, this is another thing that is just a SolidWorks thing. You can actually put names on your dimension, and you can turn them on or off if you hit these glasses over here and hit the one with the D1 in brackets. You can actually see that it's show up there. But they also, the other dimension shows up. So now I have this here. So I'm just going to extrude this. Extrude. Well, cut it. And let's make it 75 deep. All right. So now I have my first feature, and I'm gonna add a couple of features to this one. Maybe I want to add some fillets. So I'm just going to select the edge here and use the quick select here to select all 4 of them. Maybe make that 0.2. And I might also want to do the bottom here. Select the bottom, hit fillet, and this one we maybe only make 75 or something. So we have we actually ending up having 3 features in here that I now want to create into a library feature. Again, the boss extrude is just kind of like a placeholder. But how can I do that? Well, I can go in here and just control select those 3 features. And again, going up here, we actually have a add to library. And I select that one, you will now see that the 3 features are now selected inside that box as a library feature. I can give it a name. Right, so this cutout is maybe something that I'm using very often. I can even add a description that would actually also show up in drawings and in custom properties. Okay, and I hit the green check mark, and you will now see that the box is showing up here. Now, when I hover over it, you would actually also see my description shows up too. So I have just created a library feature, this block, that I'm using fairly often. Now, I'm not even going to hit save or anything because it's already inside of my library feature block. So I'm just going to exit out of this, and I'm going to save it. And I'm going to open up another part I had out on my desktop, which is the plate. So this is Design Library plate here. So this is just a plate I created to show you how to add things to it. So this is the SolidWorks part. And now I go over here, select my box, and again, I'm just dragging it into the face. And as soon as I let go, SolidWorks comes up here and says, all right, I need some edges to select. And these edges are the ones where I had my dimensions selected to. So now I can go and say, all right, I'm going to select that edge. Then it's going to say over here, all right, select the other one. Select that edge. And bam, there is that feature, right, that I'm using all the time. And when I'm in here now, I can actually go in here, and again, if I say I want to override it, you see what I have here? I have the dimensions for the placement that I can now go in and choose to alternate right in here. So a really neat way to kind of like control this, and now I have that box in there. So that's really neat with this. Now, you create this and it's all good, and then you decide that, whoops, I got to change something in here. Or maybe I want to add something to this library feature. All you do is right-click over here and say Open. And when it opens up in the same box, and you will see that we are inside that library feature because it looks like this. Now, we can actually add things to it. One of the things they gave us in 2013 was that we can actually add multi-bodies in here. Now we're starting to start, really having fun with this. So what I might do is that I'm going to open up a new sketch in the top plane here, and let me just go in here and place something like a rectangle here. This is going to be something. I'm going to make it parallel with that, maybe throw a dimension on it. 2 inches like that here, and I'm going to extrude this up half an inch. So now I actually have a multi-body part, right? That thing is kind of like floating through here, through this part, right? So it's kind of like floating, floating up in space, as you can see, hopefully. There's a multi-body part. We can, of course, also see that we got the multi-body part folder over here. Let's also throw some fillets on that one. And maybe we also throw a hole wizard hole through here. So I'm going to select the hole wizard hole full and select some kind of a size. And I'm just going to throw it in here somewhere. Now, I didn't place, I didn't give any dimensions to actually where I placed this. Let me just go back in here, position, and let's just add a dimension to that or something. All right. Now I just added all these different dimensions in here, right? All these features in here down here, but they're not library features. You don't see them over here. All you really have to do is to go over and select them, control select them, right click and say add to library. And then we just have to save it because we're saving it right back in here. And if I hit refresh, you will kind of like see our image changed a little bit. And that means that if I go over now and say I want to insert another one, you will actually see that that comes in, right? Now it sees that we added those multi-body features. And again, I can go in here and select these edges, and just like that, I have actually added multi-body parts and stuff like that. So this here gives you a fantastic way to kind of like set certain things that you're using right now and just drag it in here and place it in here. Now, there's another thing that is in the standard SolidWorks design library that you can see in here, and that's forming tools for sheet metal. So let me just quickly show you how SolidWorks already comes with a bunch of neat form tools inside of here, and they are really easy to create. The only thing I was not able to figure out before this lunch learn is how to actually steal this bitmap icon and show it over here. So you're going to excuse me for that. So I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it Form Tool. I'm just going to show you quickly how you can create form tools, because sheet metal is not just sheet metal inside SolidWorks, right? At least it doesn't have to be. I have used sheet metal functions. One time I was asked to model a custom box that went around a part, and I used sheet metal. So how do we create form tools? A little bit different, but it's again, like most things inside of SolidWorks, it's fairly easy. So let me show you. I'm going to go in and open up a new part document, and we're going to kind of like create a punch for this form tool. So somehow we're going to go and create a circle. Seems like I create all the circles inside SolidWorks. Make it 3 in, and then just extrude this one up here. It's not going to be the most crazy form tool, but just to give you an idea, right? So we got a form tool here, and now I'm going to actually create a rectangle. See, I'm using my S key a lot. And I'm not going to dimension that just because of bad habits. And let's make that, of course, you always full define your stuff, right? So let's throw a fillet on that. All right, this is what I want to use as a form tool that I want to save inside my new form tool folder over here. Well, if you got to create a form tool with sheet metal, you go to the sheet metal tab and you say create form tool. And the property manager over here is very easy to work with. What SolidWorks is asking for, what is your stopping face? That means that when you're pushing this thing into the sheet metal part or whatever, box or whatever, that you want to tell it where to stop. So I'm going to select this bottom face. That's actually all I need to select for this. I can hit the green check mark. It gets a form tool icon over here. Now, you cannot drag this over to the form tool folder. What you do have to do is go up and say Save As, and then select and drop down Form Tool. That will automatically be in there when it has a Form Tool feature. But now again, I'm just going to browse to my desktop where we have last design folder, and we have my folder in here called Form Tool, and I'm going to call this one Close Face. I hit Save, I hit Refresh, and that's really how easy it is. Let me close this one down, and I'm going to save it. And let me create the quickest sheet metal feature that you've ever seen in your life. Let's go in here, the most simple too, right? Create a rectangle like that. Turn this into a construction here, and let's just make a base flange. Right? That's how easy it is to make sheet metal functions inside SolidWorks. Now it can be flattened, and we have a sheet metal part over box or whatever it is. Now, the way the form tool works is when I drag this one in, you see how I get a preview? And I let go. I get a lot of options. I'm not going to get into this right now. You can rotate it, spin it, whatever you want. But what happens is when you hit the green check mark, I actually get that formed in there. It is important to know that these don't get flattened. Form tools don't get flattened inside SolidWorks because it's like stretching the material, right? Now, I call this one closed face because I wanted to show you an open face too. So I open up my library feature again, right? And if I go into the form tool and this time say faces to remove and select this face, and again save as, select it as a form tool, and I'm going to call this one open face. Save it. Hit rebuild. Now we have an open face. What do you think that one's going to do? Well, if I bring that one in and hit the green check mark, now it's going to have cut that face away. Okay. So that's, you know, that's kind of like the sheet metal, but you can add that in here as that. Also, one other thing to add before we stop talking about these library features. I used all these buttons up here as we've gone through all the things, but actually you can also right-click on it and you will get open folder, and new folder, and delete and stuff like that. And then you get these two here, and that is filter options. And the easiest way to show that is probably if I go back out and do some bad practices here by opening up Internet Explorer. So I had my assembly folder with a car remote I put in there. If I go into my part folder and take and do a Control-C and copy one of these into the assembly, you're not supposed to do this in SolidWorks, right? Because many times we lose references. But what happens here is that when we go back into SolidWorks, and we go to our assembly folder, if I right-click and hit the assembly folder, you will only see what is assemblies inside of here. So this is pretty neat way that you can actually stuff a lot of things in here. I could have stuffed all the part that belonged to that cart remote in there, and then I could just filter, right-click, and that will stick. So that will stick in there, and then you will only see in assembly folders assemblies. And of course, I think it's pretty obvious that forming tools will do the same thing. Will only show your forming tools. That is really the breakdown of creating not only that, but modify, adding to design library features and parts and stuff like that in there. And I'll say that that definitely does get the job done faster, without any doubt, right? You can really do that very quickly. The last thing I want to show is a little bonus that SolidWorks kind of like have added into the area of the design library. So you will actually see, if I just minimize my folders, that there's a couple of other things in here. Now, Toolbox is the Premium Professional, and if you already have that, I'm not going to talk about that here. We already have that. You know what that does. But there is two other ones. There's a SolidWorks Content and a 3D Content Central. Now, this SolidWorks Content here is actually SolidWorks giving you some extra things that you can download from SolidWorks that can be really handy. So that's why I call it a bonus. Again, if you've never ever touched and worked inside of this design library, I just gave you a belated Christmas present. For example, if you go in here to weldments, you will see there's all different kinds of weldments in here. This is actually out on SolidWorks site. But what you can do is, if you hold down Control on your keyboard and you select on one of those, it will actually let you download, in my case here, ANSI ends weldment profiles. I'm just going to do that, and it will actually download them down. So if we go out and we look at that folder, you will see that I just downloaded an ANSI ends zip file. And if we look inside of this folder, look at all these extra profiles that SolidWorks don't ship with, but you can add them right in there. And there's a lot of them. So if you were not aware of that, that SolidWorks Content button inside your design library just gave you, a heck of a lot more profiles for your weldments. There's also a couple of other things in here, but that's huge, right? That they give you freebie. And the last thing in here is the 3D Content Central. Now, 3D Content Central is a user, it's run by the SO, but it's where you can go up and grab files. I don't know if you've ever been up there, but if you haven't, it's a place you can grab different 3D models. And there's two sections. There's a user library. Now, the user library inside of this 3D Content Central that is web-based is all, you and I could load models up there and be all happy with it and share them and show how cool they are, what we worked on. But there is actually also supplier content up here. So you can go in and search on either categories or suppliers. And what happens is when you select on one of these all suppliers and click here for suppliers, it's actually going to open up your internet browser and take you right out there. And what this is a really neat addition of all these companies who is sharing their 3D models with you. So if you are ever modeling up some cabinet or something like that and you need some kind of a motor, Max Pro Technologies or some kind of an MPD motor, you click on the link and you will see that they show up with their motors. And now I can actually go in here and find one of their motors under the category that I need. And if I log in, you have to create a create a login. But when you create in here, you can actually download that 3D model. And now you can save it over in your design library maybe, or you can use it. So, before if you right now in the process where you're modeling something up that is being bought by your company from some supplier, I think that you will do yourself a favor of going out to 3D Content Central and search for that. And there's all kinds of things in here. If you go in and you search motor, you will literally be littered with all kinds of different parts from different vendors that you can actually download. So it's just more resources, right? It's just to make your life easier and get that thing. So just to recap quickly, so we showed you how Design Library worked. And I mean, going back to SolidWorks and that first part that we created in here, right, where you saw how quickly I was able to open up this. I opened up this part and I threw these O-rings in. I changed things on it to actually creating folders for my assemblies and for my parts that I can just drag in, create annotations in there. It's really easy. Also, where we went, then we actually created our own library features and kind of like control a little bit more what we wanted to bring in there and kind of like let you create that library yourself. And then, of course, the added bonuses in the end. There's some more resources. So again, if you've never been inside the design library and looking in that folder before, geez, you really have some resources on your hand. We're coming up on an hour here, so I want to kind of like wrap this up. And again, if there's any questions, I'll definitely try to get back to you either through the question area in your GoToMeeting, or you're more than welcome, of course, always to email me. Please email me with any comments if you liked it, if you hated it. I'll just cry a little, and that's fine. Any topics you want to see from us here at CADimensions, Kevin, Tom, and I, we are pretty happy with sharing them among us if you have any topics you want to see. But I definitely hope that this design library feature in here was really a good thing for you to see. For me personally, when I was out in the industry, when I discovered it, it just changed the way I did a lot of my modeling by letting me saving parts and features over in that tree just to drag it in. Also, last thing before I go, I just want to make you guys aware of that CADimensions actually do have an open house coming up in our Rochester office in February 7th, where you actually can go in and you can see meet our staff. There's going to be some different prices and stuff like that. So that's February 7th in our Rochester office. If you're interested to go, easiest thing is probably either contact your Rochester office, or you're also, of course, welcome to email me. Go to our website, CADimensions.com. I'm sure that if it's not already up there, it will be there shortly. And that's a new website that we kind of like a revamp and stuff like that. I can see that there's a couple of people who still can't see the path after I showed them where it is, and maybe I'm not sure about the educational license. I'm actually not sure what is in there, so I have to look into that. Definitely get back to you on that. Again, any other questions or comments, please feel free to email me. I want to thank everybody who showed up today. That was a great group. Thank you for all your questions, and I hope that made you more productive, may give you a chance to to make your life a little bit easier with these lunch and learns. So thank you so much, everybody. I hope you all have a fantastic day. Thank you.